I want to take a moment today to address a very specific circumstance of the tragedy that unfolded in Orlando this weekend. And that circumstance is that the target was an LGBTQ XYZ, whatever the acronym is, target. I apologize for not knowing what the acronym actually is. I'm just not that young and hip, and I haven't kept up with these things. I don't really mean any disrespect. I just think that there's only really two words that need to be used to describe the people that were in this bar that mean anything to me, and that is innocent people. And I guess maybe you could add Americans if it applies. Some of them might not have been Americans. But to me, like I said, the only two that matter are innocent people. Now, this attack was very clearly an act of Islamic terrorism. But there are some people that are trying to take away the terror aspect of this and the religious aspect of this and make it all about homophobia, and that he attacked these people because he's a closeted gay and he's self-loathing, etc. Well, this was clearly an act of terrorism, and even if you do want to say, well, he was a self-loathing gay man, well, why was he so self-loathing? Was it because his religion taught him his whole life that he's evil and he's wrong? I think that might have a little bit of something to do with it. I don't know about you, but if I spent my whole life being told you're evil and you're wrong, I might grow up a little bit warped because of that. There's just no way to separate the religious aspect from this terrorist action, even if he didn't call in and swear allegiance to ISIS, which he did. This is definitely a terrorist act, an Islamic terrorist act. Now, if you want to address why gays might be the target of such an Islamic terrorist attack, or why they're a target in general, well, that's a different topic. And if you want to talk about, well, how can we stop things like this from happening in the future, that's definitely a different topic. And there's two things we could do to stop this from happening in the future, to do everything we could to make it less frequent in the future that this happens. And the first thing we could do actually addresses the reason why gays are so often the target of this type of behavior. And that first thing we could do is stop accepting it when people spout bigotry and hate in the name of religion. Society needs to stop acting like this is benign or that this is somehow their right, and we need to put a stop to it. Stop pretending that religious freedom somehow gives people a right to be hateful and incite violence and incite prejudice. If you belong to a religion that requires you to hate or condemn anyone, then you need a new religion. That saying is old and true. And no, it is not a violation of someone's First Amendment rights to call them on their garbage. The First Amendment applies to the government censoring your free speech. It doesn't make you immune to the consequences of your own hateful words. Any person that would teach that someone, through a condition of birth or through something that is not in their control, is somehow less of a citizen, somehow less of a person, that somehow doesn't deserve fair treatment, that doesn't deserve anything good, that they deserve punishment, if you spout that kind of garbage, you should be held accountable for it. Your society should call you on it, condemn you for it, and ostracize you for it. If you stand up and preach hatred and violence and discrimination, just waving a particular book in front of you while you do it isn't a shield against the consequences of your speech. If society stopped being accepting of these loathsome people, we wouldn't have things like this happening so often. If we didn't allow this group of people to teach young gay people to be self-loathing to where they act out inappropriate later, this wouldn't happen as often. And you wouldn't have this whole other class of people that somehow think they're justified in committing violence against these people because it'll win them the adoration and the approval of another group of people. That's one long-term step we could take to help stop things like this. But the best short-term thing we could do to stop things like this from happening as often is we could accept the fact that no matter how many rights or freedoms you surrender, you're never going to be able to stop every monster. The only thing you can do is be prepared to deal with these monsters if you have to, if you have no other option. And if you're someone that's in a targeted group, a group that is more likely to be in the crosshairs of these monsters, then you have even more of an obligation to yourself and your family and your friends to be prepared to deal with them. And I know some people will be like, oh, violence only begets violence. Well, that's another crap load of garbage that's been sold to you by religion that doesn't want you to fight back against oppression. I think last night we saw there's no such thing as a safe place. Yes, I know that you love to go to your bars or your meeting places, etc., and pretend that this is somehow a safe haven, that there is some sort of ideological barrier that prevents bad people from coming inside. But we saw that's not true. We also saw that a quick wit and a sharp tongue is no defense against a monster with a rifle. But you know what is a good defense against a single monster with a rifle? Just a few good people that are not only willing to, but capable of defending themselves. And it doesn't have to be a lot of people. There were over 300 people in that room. If only 1% of them had been capable of fighting back, this would have ended very differently. So if you want to get serious about stopping tragedies like the one that happened in Orlando, let's start making some long-term changes to society. Let's stop tolerating hatred and bigotry. And in the short term, stop pretending that surrendering your rights or demonizing other groups of people and taking away their rights is going to solve the problem. Instead of trying to make yourself safe by surrendering your rights, make yourself safe by exercising your rights. Your right to be prepared and your right to defend yourself, whether you're gay, straight, black, white, male, female, or whatever.